2 years ago, El Salvador became the first country to declare Bitcoin as an official currency. Since then, people are split between whether their Bitcoin law was a wild success or a total flop. And that's not even mentioning all the other drama since then.
Your corporate accounts will be frozen.
Who owes who what? The now bankrupt FTX.
I'm deeply sorry about what happened.
But a few hundred miles away in the neighboring country of Guatemala, the Bitcoin movement continues to spread. Not through a legal currency law, but by a purely grassroots initiative set in the bustling lakeside town of Panajachel. All in a country with a surprisingly different economy, heritage, and monetary history. So, what makes using Bitcoin here drastically different than El Salvador? Could Bitcoin empower the indigenous communities of Guatemala to achieve monetary sovereignty? And could this town be the new blueprint for how Bitcoin becomes accepted in dozens of countries, hundreds of towns, and millions of people across the world? Join me as I discover the story and the secrets behind LAGO Bitcoin. Good morning. Had a short but pretty decent sleep. Probably still need some of that Guatemalan coffee though. Unfortunately, I'm not gonna actually be here in Guatemala City that long because we are going straight back to the airport to pick up Adam and make our way over to Panajachel, where Bitcoin Lake is located. All right, we got the gang from Canada here.
Canadians are in.
Getting to LAGO Bitcoin from Guatemala City was a bit of a trek. It's a lot of winding and bumpy countryside roads for several hours with not a ton of pit stops.
Here?
Yeah, go for it.
Honestly, the drive was brutal. Like it was so bad.
Do not recommend that. I don't think like any level of shocks could have prepared you for that. You could have had like a Humvee, 10 feet off the ground.
100% agree.
After some prerequisite travel complaints from the gringos, it was time to finally see what Bitcoin looked like in Panajachel, a remote but popular tourist destination rapidly growing in Bitcoin merchant adoption, education, and even some local mining.
Speaking of mining, looking forward to seeing our cooking oil miner today.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna see next.
Is it you cooking oil?
Yeah, I think so. That cannot be environmentally sound.
Sure it is. They're taking what would otherwise be dumped in the lake and turning it into the most sound money on earth. That is the most environmentally sound thing you could possibly do.
You can't do anything else with used cooking oil?
Start a fire.
Recycling waste oil in countries like Guatemala isn't typically economically viable, which is why what you're about to see is sort of brilliant.
Nice to meet you, buddy.
Welcome, guys. I'm gonna show you all the process.
Eleazar is the chief community leader for the LAGO Bitcoin project and maintainer of the town's mining operation.
They used to throw this all in the garbage on the rivers or to the lake, killing slowly our lake. So now doing this, mining Bitcoins, we can, save our lake and get some Bitcoin basically from garbage. And the really cool thing about this is that anybody can do this. Anybody in any country, anywhere, and just, wow.
At 88 terahash of output, the LAGO Bitcoin mine makes about $230 worth of Bitcoin per month, or about half of an average monthly salary in Guatemala. But what good is all that Bitcoin without a place to spend it?
Wanna spend some sats in Pana?
Let's spend some sats in Pana, baby.
All right, we are in a tuk-tuk. This is the preferred method of transportation around Panajachel. It's a little bumpy. Buena. Gracias.
Fueron para con Bitcoin? Claro que sí. ¡Ah! ¡Yes! ¡Pagar con Bitcoin!
¿Es mejor que Starbucks o no?
Sí, porque Bitcoin.
Within only 10 months, LAGO Bitcoin has already successfully onboarded around 80 businesses in Panajachel to accept Bitcoin. And a big part of that credit goes to Eleazar, who spends countless hours helping local businesses understand how Bitcoin works.
I was working as a waiter over here in Panajachel because no job, no nothing, and I didn't know nothing about Bitcoin. I saw a guy with the word Bitcoin on his t-shirt. And I came to him as a waiter and asked him, what's Bitcoin? And he did a transaction. It went fast in a second. I downloaded the wallet of Satoshi, and then he tipped me, and that was really cool. A couple of months later, he came and explained me all about, this project and what he want to do. He did the offer if I want to work with them. And that was, wow, that was something really nice for me, and I accepted, and yeah, that's how I started in Bitcoin. Only because Bitcoin, I've been getting a lot of friends here in Panajachel. I met people that they asked me about mining, they asked me about, wallets, they asked me about Lightning, on-chain, so I had to learn a little bit of everything.
In the bigger picture, the vision for the LAGO Bitcoin project extends beyond just the town of Panajachel. As El Salvador's direct neighbor, Guatemala shares many of the same monetary and economic challenges that have welcomed disruption to the status quo. 18% of Guatemala's GDP comes from remittances received from family living abroad, over half the population doesn't have a bank account, and Visa and MasterCard take 8 to 10% in fees per transaction, the equivalent of losing an entire year of revenue for every 10 years of business. At the root is a staggering 79% of Guatemala's population working under informal employment, work that isn't governed by labor regulations, protections, or workplace rights, most commonly exemplified as working in family businesses or street vending. But where Guatemala really differentiates from El Salvador is through the prevalence of Mayan culture that permeates nearly every aspect of the country's history and tradition. Like many Latin American countries, Guatemala has a complex and brutal history of Spanish oppression, genocide, and colonization. But in spite of this, Guatemala hosts one of the largest indigenous populations in the Western Hemisphere, with over 43% of the population identifying, preserving, and actively speaking a Mayan language. Bitcoin offers Guatemala's economy and unique population the ability to transact digitally in a way that traditional financial institutions in the country simply don't provide for. It's a borderless, self-custodial protocol for money with virtually free transactions and finality. With Bitcoin, as long as you have internet, you can be your own bank and payment processor. So while Panajachel remains the most popular and touristic town on the lake, where you can really get a glimpse into the more traditional Guatemalan and Mayan culture is through the many other surrounding villages like San Juan La Laguna. And what better way to get there than on a Bitcoin-powered boat?
Hey, you know that I'm yeah, I'm moving real smooth when I walk through the party. And if you don't know, well, ahora ya tú sabes. Buscas lo suave, llámame. I got that suave. You know that I'm suave. I can do this all day. Look, so let me teach you a thing or two about cool. This is what you do. Put a little.
After accidentally losing my cold card in a tiny boating accident, we finally arrived to San Juan La Laguna. This town was founded in 1623 and is known for its agricultural and textile industries. Over 95% of the population identify as indigenous Chutejil, and while there is road access into San Juan, most visitors come through the town's harbor, greeted by its famous umbrella street that leads up from the docks. Our first stop was a chocolate factory where we took a tour, well, shortly after Eleazar had a chance to do some orange pilling first.
Si usted se mete en problemas, le frisan la cuenta y usted ya no puede utilizar su dinero. En cambio, con Bitcoin usted va a ser el banco de su propio dinero y empieza a trabajar. Es mucho mejor.
Oh, mucho mejor.
Much better.
Much better.
The origins of chocolate and the discovery of the cacao bean can be traced back thousands of years ago to the earliest Mayan civilizations. Religious ceremonies would serve it as a bitter drink, and warriors would drink it to boost their energy and stamina.
Oh yeah, that's pretty good.
That is good. Look at that, pure cacao. Cannot beat that. Archaeologists have even found intricate vases in Mayan tombs filled with cacao beans, dating all the way back to 450 BC. And at one point, some Mayans even used it as a currency.
Like you drink the natural cocoa. At home it's like, put this steroid on your skin and like get this medicine from the doctor, and it's so bad. You're like, it's natural, it's nice.
It's natural.
It's crazy the difference, eh?
The earth is power.
The low time preference of Guatemala is amazing. It's nice.
After filling up on some amazing chocolate, our next stop was a local artisan cooperative named Casa Flor Ixcaco, where we learned about the significance of weaving in the community of San Juan. All the cotton used has to be carefully prepared from raw fibers, a process that takes upwards of 16 hours. From there, the yarns are dyed in natural occurring colors from flowers, spices, and even fruits. Once dry, the weaving process begins in all of its intricacies. The process to create some of the blouses can take upwards of 2 weeks, and the design of the cooperative ensures that all the women who contribute receive fair distribution of the profits from their work. Which was, of course, a natural jumping off point for Eleazar to pitch Bitcoin, as a means to help these businesses accept digital payments without forfeiting an additional 8 to 10% of their work to MasterCard or Visa. The next few days in Panajachel were spent trying out local restaurants, meeting up with a few Bitcoiners in the area, and following Eleazar through his day-to-day, talking with various businesses about how they too could integrate Bitcoin into their shops. One of the most appealing factors for businesses in Panajachel is just how easy it is to set up versus other payment processors. Wallets on the App Store like the Bitcoin Beach Wallet allow you to make invoices within 30 seconds of downloading the app and come preloaded with an array of exchange rates to help with price conversion. Of the dozen or so businesses we spoke to, most of them told us they would simply save the Bitcoin paid for goods instead of converting it back into fiat.
Lo mantengo. Después, si necesito, lo cambio. Ajá, lo cambio. Ajá.
Es como que ahorrar
Sí,
en Bitcoin.
ahorrar.
Ah.
Y cuando tengo una necesidad, lo cambio.
After a few more days around Bitcoin Lake, sadly, my journey had to come to a close. As I returned back to my home country of Canada, I was left fulfilled by my time in Guatemala, and yet I couldn't quite shake the feeling that I had missed something. Did I really travel thousands of kilometers just to see more Bitcoin adoption, or was there something more to take away from my experience? In editing this video, I ended up diving deeper into the history of Mayan culture in Guatemala. Despite enduring the onslaught of Spanish colonization, volcanic eruptions, deadly diseases, civil wars, American interventionism, and rapid modernization, many of the communities around Panajachel function much in the same way as they did hundreds of years ago. Historians credit the Mayans' ability to preserve their culture to things like their hold on Guatemala's challenging terrain, as well as the sheer resilience of Mayan identity in the face of colonialism. Even Guatemala's official fiat currency, the quetzal, maintains the namesake and symbol of the sacred bird of the ancient Mayas, while most other surrounding Latin American currencies are named after famous European conquerors or have been replaced altogether by the US dollar.
What's beautiful about Guatemala is when the Civil War was raging, it was basically between the government and the rebels, which were the Mayans. And the indigenous population were able to preserve their culture, especially in that part of Guatemala. I think because of that, the cultural aspect and the distrust of the central government, I don't think that if there was a Bukele in Guatemala, that the indigenous people and those outside of the major cities would have accepted Bitcoin because of the long history of distrust. So what I look forward to in Pana and Bitcoin Lake is the people that learn about Bitcoin, there's a deep groundswell and grassroots movement that pushes what they want up to the government. Ultimately, the people are going to want Bitcoin, not the government.
And that's when it started to click. The countless attempts of the state and the outside world to enforce their rules, beliefs, and currency systems onto the indigenous Mayans of Guatemala has only fortified their communities further. Every imposition or challenge passed upon them only fueling their resolve. And it's this trait of generational resilience in the face of state regime that may make Bitcoin ultimately succeed in Guatemala. Bitcoin is the first monetary system of rules without rulers, a money open to anyone yet corruptible by no one. And when it comes to adversity, it thrives on it.
Bitcoin is a bubble.
Ephemeral token.
Worthless artificial gold.
Unlike every other system of money, you don't need to trust Bitcoin because you can verify it for yourself. Perhaps that is what could make Bitcoin the first currency worthy to the spirit of Mayan culture. And in that sense, maybe a whole lot of other places as well. But like all flames, the spark always has to start somewhere.
This is probably going to be truly a decentralized Bitcoin community where I came up with the idea, and it's going to be people like Eleazar, who's there on the ground. Even those coming from Guatemala City would not have the credibility that he has because he's from the community. I mean, he's of Mayan descent. He's got his own hours. I mean, he's basically like a mini entrepreneur. And I've stressed to him early on that you're doing this for your people. You know, this is not about just you. This is about bringing something better to your people. And he embraced that concept, that vision. You know, it was just a blessing. I really feel like it was a divine intervention that the Lord brought Eleazar to me, and, you know, one thing led to another, for sure. Yeah.
Hoping to meet more Bitcoiners in the future and working with everybody here in Guatemala.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right, that's it. Hey there, I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I did making it. Now, I know you're probably expecting me to say like and subscribe, and I will, and I just did, but if I could just hold your attention for 30 more seconds, that would be amazing. Creating videos like this about Bitcoin has become a passion of mine for the last few years, and as much as I live to make videos like this, the only way I can keep doing it is with your continued support. Every little bit helps in allowing me to get things like plane tickets, camera gear, editing support, and all of the little pieces that bring these stories to life. If you happen to own a Bitcoin company and would like to sponsor the creation of these videos in the future, send me a message as well, and I'd love to chat. And finally, a big thank you to everyone involved with LAGO Bitcoin. It is well worth the trip to Guatemala, and you can check out their social links in the description below. Cheers everyone, keep stacking sats, and I'll catch you in the next one.